Tax dollars, so they're everyone's, so we try to, spread the money throughout the county. And as I said, there's enough quality programs that it isn't even difficult to be now. Years ago, there were less things being offered. It was a little harder, but it isn't now. There's so many things that are great that are going on.
And you said some of these grantees are also receiving state dollars.
Yes.
Are our county dollars leveraging some of that?
Yes.
That our county
They
dollars,
do. They do
okay.
ask. The state does ask if the county contributes towards the program.
Good. So that perhaps spawns more money
Yes.
for these types of things.
And also, when they get this money, they of course have to credit the county. And also that helps them to leverage money because they've gone through a grant process and been selected, with a competitive grant process.
Right.
So we did the best, the most. We like to do different things, support different disciplines too, because that's supporting different artists, types of artists. So there's a lot of formulas that go into, once the grant people make up their decision, the independent grants folks, and they decide, they do a numeric final analysis, and then we divvy the money according to their calculations, but we make sure it goes to all parts of the county. Yeah.
Any comments from the committee?
Yes, thank you. I'm glad that Tompkins Corners Cultural Center was added on again this year. They do a wonderful job.
They do.
If you haven't had the opportunity to go to it, please, they have programs.
They have poetry, visual arts.
Bluegrass, a whole bunch of different things.
Yeah.
So thank you for putting that.
They did get money last year, but it was state money. But they have great value over there. They do amazing things. Like I said, they're all volunteers. But that's the case for a lot of this. A lot of these folks, the chorale as well. I don't know if you've been to a chorale production. I went this year. They're amazing. So they're very talented people. And my bookkeeper here, Tina, keeps us, shipshape financially. She oversees all of that. And I think you wanted me to make sure that they realize that we're doing this on behalf of the county, which Dan already did indicate. Did you want to say something?
No, I just wanted to make sure that everybody reviewed where the money was going to, so we don't have later then coming back to us saying that, so we represented that you understood it all, everybody, and that we don't need to go back again
Review
what
anything.
happened with this. So we're more than happy to give any information that is needed prior to and/or now and/or after.
And we audit the program too. We send people, we get 2 tickets from each group, so some of the panel members or people who can't afford it can go for free to different things. And they do audits for us so that we know how the money is being spent. And my regrants manager, between she and I, we go to a lot of them and as well. So, because each year it's a surprise at what somebody's doing. They're just amazing, really.
You've got a lot of talent.
Yeah, it's a fun job that I have, actually. I work with a lot of other than the money part, I work with a lot of very fun people, very creative. I'm working with Danielle Silich now to bring some Rev 250 items, the Arts Council, some ideas on programs that we might do. So the arts is everywhere, always being asked, even these folks, to do things somewhere at a nursing home or a senior center or something, and they're very generous with their talent and their time. I'm trying to think. I think that's pretty much everything. You got any questions? Anyone else?
Greg, you had a comment?
Okay.
I just want to thank Joyce for her willingness to work together, her responsiveness, and her professionalism. It's been a pleasure working with you, and thank you for all that you do.
Oh, thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. I'm a call away. If you guys ever have a question or have an issue with something, you know where to find me, generally speaking. And I gave everybody my cell phone too. So, so this money goes to the full edge, and then we're going to put in we usually get this in 2 installments, January and July. So we probably won't be getting in until July, because your next meeting is July 1st.
Right.
So I'm going to put in for the full amount,
Okay.
because that's when we would be getting.
Yeah, this process was a little delayed this year.
Yeah, so
On
all
our
these,
part,
so all these folks have
exactly.
had to put out some
Exactly.
money. Yeah, so just so you know that, and financial folks and everybody.
Yeah, I think that'll be fine. obviously.
I mean, that's how we would be doing it
Yeah.
anyway. We would be
Yeah.
getting the second installment in July.
Any legislative colleagues have any comments or questions? Erin, and then
I just want to say thank you to Joyce and Tina. I also love the fact that we're expanding and exploring new ideas and new community-funded artists. I think it's wonderful that we're not just keeping the same people over and over
Yeah,
again. It's nice
it's
to give
growing.
somebody a chance to grow and give them that push that they may need.
Yes.
That's wonderful. I look forward to seeing hopefully some of these things
Good.
that I could get to, and I appreciate you both very much, and thank you for coming back and spending your time with us. I know it's been an arduous process, but we do appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Amy?
Again, I want to say thank you. I think art is the heart and soul of the community. We saw the passion when all the artists and performers came in and spoke at the legislature, and it was so impressive.
Yep.
It was so heartfelt, and of course we heard every one of them. I think this list is very impressive, although I would like to see something in impact, but that's where I'm from.
Library didn't apply.
But they didn't.
No, I encouraged them to, but for some reason, because that's generally, who, they usually get a grant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have art, a lot of art displays at the
Yeah,
library.
and they do different things. They used to often get money for the concerts that they did,
Yeah.
So that was the reason they weren't turned down. They just didn't apply, so.
But I will say, Mayapack has the best of the all. It's got the Bellevue Art Center.
Yeah, we can't fund ourselves,
Yeah, I was gonna
unfortunately.
But
I would love to,
Your doors are always
But
open.
everybody can write a check too.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Thank
true.
you. You are a nonprofit.
Yeah, we are a
Write check.
nonprofit, we are a
Yeah.
charity. And come to something, we have 12 shows this year at our own space. So we right now have Building Bridges, that's a show that we're partnering with Youth Bureau,
Okay.
and Jennifer Cunningham and Naomi Bowen. And that show opened Friday afternoon. So, yeah, so that's...
Are you open on the weekend? Or
Yes,
never?
so
Okay.
it was open on Saturday, they didn't want it open on Sunday, it's open tomorrow.
Okay.
I think it ends Wednesday, and then we have a new show coming in a week.
It's on the website.
Yes,
On the
it's all
website.
on the website, yes.
Tony?
Thank you. As you know, I'm a strong supporter
Yeah.
of the arts. And it's so important, and people really need to realize that, children and adults, anybody with special needs,
Yeah,
art therapy
yeah,
is always a valuable asset
yeah,
to the community, and also for our veterans with PTSD.
yes.
So,
So
thank you.
this year I want to do, I've tried before, but I'm going to try again. I want to do free classes for veterans.
Yes, you did that in the past.
Yes, we offered them in the past. I'd like to grab a few
Mhm.
veterans to take them,
Mhm.
and we offer the space for Guarding Revival
Yes.
on Monday nights if they
Mhm.
want to be in there, also free.
Very good.
Yeah, because they're an underserved, in the arts world,
Mhm.
they're an underserved group.
Great, thank you
Yeah.
for all you do.
Yeah.
Laura?
I want to echo everybody else and say thank you for your hard work. Thank you for your patience while, we asked for a few additional things.
That's okay.
And of course, I support all the art, so.
Yeah,
thank you again.
I saw you at InterArts,
And I'm happy to see that Inner Arts is a recipient,
right?
so,
They're doing some great things over there.
yeah,
What a facility they have.
yeah.
I was like,
I'm impressed with it. They did a great
beautiful.
job, so.
Yeah, yeah.
And so again, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any member of the public care to weigh in or share any thoughts? No? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to move this to the full. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Bill, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for your support. Oh, I remember.
Next is item number 6. It's a proposal from the county executive to have a local law to amend Chapter 220 of Article 10 of our code, our code, entitled Exemption for the Qualified Members of Volunteer Fire Departments and Ambulance Corps. Kevin, our county exec, Kevin Byrne, has sent this memo down to us dated June 6th. It's a proposal to amend our code again to give exemptions for qualified members of volunteer fire departments. I know we've all read it. I think it's a rather good idea. I think it's something that the county should be doing, and this amendment will help us do that. I thank the county executive for bringing it to our attention. Do we have any comments from the committee members on this? Bill?
Thank you, Tony. The fire departments and the ambulance force actually throughout the county do a very vital and important job. They're kind of the backbone of each town here in Putnam County. And I can tell you that the membership in these groups throughout the county are declining because of life in general. People are not able to participate in that type of thing. So whatever we could do to keep the qualified members and try to encourage more members to join the positive things of these communities.
I also, thank you, Chairman. I also think it's really important to note on this, it's been hard to get people in the jails, police officers, dispatchers, volunteer firefighters. I mean, we need to recognize them. And recently, the Fire Training Center, I think, makes it a little bit more sustainable and easy to bring people into the community instead of having them go train outside of the county. It's really important that we have that here now, and that they can do their trainings here, and we can foster that environment for them. So I am happy and excited that that is ready to go, and I do believe that we need to address the fact that they're doing this to save. They not only do they save us money, but they're doing it out of the kindness of their heart and love for their community, and we really need to address that. So.
A lot of those calls come in at 2 or 3 in the morning.
Absolutely.
A lot of us are safe in bed, they're out running to the fire, so.
Like that.
Thank you. Any other legislative or committee members?
I think this is a great idea. I'm fully going to support it as it is written. But speaking to a couple of firefighters, I found it very interesting that they were so interested in being fair, because it's a 10% reduction. And they had suggested, which are not, I just want to bring this out for discussion, a potential cap. Because someone who lives in a $1.5 million house gets a lot more of a benefit than someone who lives in a $500,000 house. So I just think it's something we should consider in the future and see how this works. But I will, when we bring this up, I'm going to be voting for it as it is.
Thank you, I agree. I was going to just bring that up at 10%, so everybody's aware. For the volunteers, it's a property tax reduction of 10% just on the property. It's not school taxes. So I wish we could do more, but it's a start. And maybe we can do something more for these volunteers, because like everyone said, it's very hard to find people to volunteer. They take a lot of time out, and I think it's wonderful. And every year, we thank them when we go to their installation dinner, and I just can't believe how many young people take the time out every day to do this. It's hard work.
Some of them
It's very,
are our age too. You know,
Yeah.
It's hard for people who
That's
our
right.
age too. So it's of all ages, because
Yes.
they really do span the entire community. And
Yeah.
it's, Amy, that area?
So looking at this, again, it's a 10% real property tax exemption for each firefighter, ambulance volunteer their service to Putnam County. And this is Putnam County taxes only, not town, not school, not library, nothing else. So this is only off Putnam County.
Yeah, that's we only have the power to do
That's the
it.
only power that we have, and hopefully other municipalities will join it. I don't know what this would, how much this is actually
much.
worth, and how would we come up with some type of aggregate as to how much this would.
Well, I'm sure there could be an analysis done, you know, based on the first year's program. We could come up with a number, but I think it's, you know, every penny we spend on this comes back dressed up as a nickel
Absolutely.
compared to what we have to pay otherwise.
And that's what I was going to say, is this is for our volunteers who don't get paid. This is, you know, we still have the same tax burden. So it's going to shift, this 10% is going to shift to everybody else. But that's, it's worth it to the taxpayer. I mean, I'm just saying it's valuable, it's worth it, and it's.
What would a paid force cost us?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's certainly worth, you know, my taxes to.
The committee, then everyone.
And just to clear for the public, it only applies to people who have given 20 years of service.
So how does this, I think it's wonderful, but how does it, we passed a couple years ago with the, I think it came down from the state, it used to be the state's responsibility, and then it became each county's responsibility, then it moved from the county to the town, then to the school district, and there was a time frame on it with the veterans and also the veterans.
I have a lot of expertise to offer on this.
Okay,
I'll
good.
answer a lot of questions. Go
Give me
ahead.
one
Yeah,
sec.
when we
So-
get to the public, we value your input, yes.
So, we passed that, right, and we set a time frame of, that wasn't lifelong volunteers, which, God bless them for that. But now, is this going to, if we have a lifelong member, is this going to negate what they got already? Is this going to give them the ability to have two, if let's say a wife and a husband and a wife are in the home, is this going to allow both the husband and wife? Because from what I understand right now, it's just one person in that home that can receive it. So I have some, I want to give the benefit, right, to the homeowners. And if you have two first responders in that home that are lifelong members, I believe they both are deserving of it. But, so that's something I'd like to know about this. I think it's wonderful, and again, does it negate what we previously passed? Because I think we passed it for, was it 3 years or 5 years they had to be in, and was it 15% that we gave back? I don't recall what exactly the percentage was, and then the town and the school district had to agree with it, and their years were different, could be different than ours, and also their percentage could be different than ours. So how does this work in collaboration with that?
I wouldn't imagine any of these programs, and this, again, this authority to do this comes to us through the state. I can't imagine any of these, and I'm going to defer to an expert, she's coming up shortly. But I can't imagine any of these state allowances would require us to penalize anybody who's gotten it already. So, you know, I think this is a good thing for us to do. I think we all agree it's a good thing for us to do. And, you know, if there is any wrinkles in the suit afterwards, I don't think there should be, but, you know, maybe we could research that before the full board meeting on July 1st.
That would be great. I think my only question was just having the dual first responder in the home, because I'm pretty sure, using think, but I'm pretty sure that it only allowed for one person to use that benefit in the home.
I'm going to date myself and harken back to Felix Unger. You know what you get when you assume. So I'm not going to assume. Okay, go to Tony first and then to
Oh,
Paul.
that's okay, because Paul's probably going to talk about
The
the price of property taxes, right? What's the average property tax in Putnam County that a person pays?
Well, of which bucket? Of the county, of the town?
No, I'm just saying average household. Yeah, at $800 a year.
Oh, the county bill.
Yeah, county portion, depending on the, right? So this only amounts to maybe $80 to $100 a year. That's it.
Well, that's
I'm just saying,
yeah,
this
but
is what, so everyone's aware of that.
Every little bit
It's
we can
basically,
give, I think.
Mhm. No, I understand, but it's not a large amount.
Paul?
I'm sorry I came in late. I was at an event with my daughter, and I'm sorry I walked in halfway through. This only applies to firemen, volunteers who are volunteering in agencies outside of the town that they live in. I would bet you more than 90% of the volunteers are volunteering within the boundaries of their own town. So I don't think that's an issue. That's why I wouldn't even ask for there's no way to get an impact statement on this, because you just don't know how many people. I think it's insignificant. There's nothing here that says that a husband and wife can't both get it. I don't know where that came up from, but there's no reason why you wouldn't be able to have two exemptions in one household.
Yep.
So I'm in favor. I've always been in favor and supportive of our volunteers, and this is just another acknowledgement.
Eric, and then we'll go to the public.
I think in mine and Amy's district too, we have a lot of people that cross over, I think because of friend groups and things like that, like Mayapack Falls to Mayapack. You know, I think we do get a lot of crossover, so if you live in Mayapack and you're in Mayapack Falls, how is that gonna work?
Well, it's the town of Carmel.
It is the town of Carmel, but would your hamlet wouldn't matter at all? It's just the town of Carmel?
You're applying to the town of Carmel, so as long
Yeah,
as the
so as long as the assessor, yeah,
districts.
that's true, it would be all the same. So if you're in Kent, program. Yeah, it's interesting.
Laura?
So I am obviously in support of this. I think it's a great idea. I do know people that live in the town of Patterson, but are volunteers with Brewster. And then I did meet a young person the other day, and this probably won't apply to him, but he lives in Westchester and is a volunteer fireman in Mahopac Falls. But I'm there, so I do know a few people that it crossover. But either way, I know this wasn't addressed because I know the town has given a little help, but it didn't affect these people where this will.
Any other legislators? If not, I'll open it up to the public. Any member of the public have a comment on this or any information? Sir, would you come up and state your name and the town in which you reside?
Good evening. Hi, folks. My name is Tom Regan. Multitude of points we just hit on there.
Okay.
So first one is the overall cost. Recent study by FASD, the Firefighters Association of New York, estimate that paid career departments will cost New York taxpayers an additional $4.7 billion to the New York State budget if we had to go all paid for the departments. Then we had a couple of points here with different questions that were up. I took some notes. What I would like to be clear is this. It's a 10% reduction in the assessment of your property. One property, your primary, one person in every household does it. So if there are 3 volunteers in one house, there's one tax reduction. 2 years ago, the state of New York amended the real property tax law to provide this opportunity for volunteers to get a 10% reduction in their assessment. Last year, New York amended that to address what Laura was talking about right there. If you live in Carmel but volunteer in Brewster, previously in version 1, you were getting no relief whatsoever. So New York State authorized that person who crosses over a line but serves a community to get that tax relief. That wasn't part of the first legislation that came down, so they amended that last year. Each taxing agency has to authorize what you're talking about. So I myself, representing Brewster Fire Department, went in front of the school board, the fire commissioners, which is a taxing agency, the town, right? And then we had the county. So one of the things, the nuances, and I'm not familiar with what the county executive has here, and it's an inquiry of mine. Does he require 5 years of service in the current version that's being discussed right here? Because I would tell you is that every other taxing agency that I've dealt with successfully requires 2 years of service. And one of the big onus behind this entire thing is recruitment and retention. So if I just met you, Dan, and said, please donate 20 hours of whatever time you don't have during the week to the volunteer fire department, but after 2 years you'll get some tax relief, well, that's an incentive. 5 years doesn't really do the recruitment and retention that we were looking for. So right now, I have 17 years, so I've surpassed that. But people who join the Brewster Fire Department today, in 2 years, will get relief from the Board of Education, from the town of Southeast, from the fire district, but have to wait 5 years till they get any relief on their county tax. The assessor handles all of this and yearly takes the rolls from the department and bounces that off of who's entitled to and who's not. So there is no multi, doesn't matter how many volunteers in the house, but that's part of the real tax law that comes down from Albany. So I don't even think we could do anything here with that in the county, even if we wanted to. That's sent down to us, and then each taxing agency approves whether or not they want to grant it up to 10%. You do have that opportunity from 0 to 10%, a reduction in the assessment of your property. Let me just see if there was anything else.
This is specifically to 20 though.
So the 20-year member on the first version of the state law indicated from that point forward, I have to defer, I forget about that, but I believe it didn't require an annual renewal of asking. Each member, like myself, has to submit a form to the assessor's office by March 1st saying that I would like to request a 10% relief, and then the assessor gets the rolls from the fire department, checks that you're actually active, which is great, which is fine, because you don't want people claiming the benefit who are not entitled to it. I believe after 20 years you're not, and a widow or widower doesn't have to annually claim it with the assessor's office. but I'm not 100% sure.
On that point, I was going to ask you, it seems like you just answered it. Mechanically, how does it work? I guess you just explained it. You're a taxpayer who's entitled to this. You would file a certificate with the town assessor.
Correct.
Which then gets verified by, for instance, we're both in the Brewster Fire District.
Right.
Your fire district goes ahead and submits the roll of active members this year?
By March 1st,
The tax
the list of members who performed services in the previous year is due at the assessor's office for the taxing year.
Okay.
So there is a lag on that because it's 2024 and 2025, right? But who successfully was a volunteer for the previous 12 months as a member of the department, and then the assessor gets that information by March 1st. If you don't have that form in by March 1st, we've gone over this, you're entitled to it. But if you get your form in and you are entitled to it, and because we actively lobbied with the 4 taxing agencies, that unfortunately was a hard lesson learned by some of the other departments who thought that once New York State passed the opportunity, but not, right, it didn't tell you that you had to do it. It said the legislature of Putnam County has the opportunity to grant this. You had to lobby with each one of those agencies. So we in Brewster, thankfully, we did. We lobbied with all 4 agencies, and all agencies granted. Other departments within Putnam County, I believe, have all learned that you have to go and ask, and I believe all departments have now lobbied with all of them. But I would take this opportunity to point out that only the county of Putnam still has that 5-year bar. All the other taxing agencies have said, yes, we appreciate our volunteers, we want to encourage people recruitment. 2 years seems like a reasonable number. If you're there after 48 months of going through all the training and making your calls and being on duty crews, that you're entitled to a 10% reduction in the assessment. It's not a 10% reduction in taxes, which is a misnomer. It's a big difference. It's a big difference, right? But it is appreciated. It is appreciated because previous to that, it was a sum total of a reduction of $200 on your New York State income tax, was the sum total of the thanks from the state of New York for all your time and effort. So currently, you now have the option as a taxpayer to take the $200 deduction from your New York State income tax or the real property tax law. There is movement in Albany to make those both available to volunteers, which would be nice. But the $200 reduction in your New York State income tax was minuscule. So, but currently you can only do one or the other. But that's where we stand. Any questions? I do have a wealth of knowledge.
I would say with respect to the 5 or the 2, I don't want to make the perfect the enemy of the good. I think we should pass this tonight, and to the extent we might need to come back at some future point to work on that 5-year versus 2-year thing, I think we should, but I don't want to make, I agree. Well, I don't know if we can amend it.
Why can't we? Council?
Do we know exactly where it says 5?
Yes, I do. It's right over here. It's section 2.
Section 2, letter E.
22066E, where it says, and if I may read, Mr. Chairman, the applicant is certified by the authority having jurisdiction for the Incorporated Volunteer Fire Department, Fire Company, Fire Department, Volunteer Ambulance Service as enrolled member of such Incorporated Volunteer Fire Company, Fire Department, or Voluntary Ambulance Service for a period of 5 years of service. I would like to make a motion to amend and change that to 2 years of service.
All right.
This is 20 years of service, though, you have to
No.
have.
No, that's for a
before
lifetime
you get
exemption.
exception. So what about, sorry, through the chair,
Yeah.
with the other law that we passed a couple of years ago, we had talked about going back to it, I think because it was brand new to us, it came down from the state, we had set the 5-year tone, and then talked about going back to it, to change it.
And we never did.
Well, you weren't on the legislature that, yes, we haven't done it, so maybe it's something that we should look at for future meetings.
So we have a motion, a second. Now we're talking about the amendments go from 5 years down to 2. We can talk about anything else. Paul, do you have comments?
I'd like to ask council, does real property tax law 466 allow for us to change it from 5 to 2?
I would have to look through the tax law a lot more in depth. This came from the county exec's office, so I haven't studied it in depth. But I can take a look at it if you need a more specific answer. If you want to make the amendment, I can look at it
Why don't we
between now
do
and
that?
the fall.
Why don't we make the amendment, approve the amendment to the full, and in the meantime, before July 1st, we could see if we're allowed to do that. If we are, great, we've got an amended resolution on the floor. If we're not allowed to pass the 5 years to 2, I would think we would amend it on the floor of the legislature to keep it at 5. and then maybe come back at some future date and work on seeing how we can get it down to 2, not only for this one, but for the neighborhood mentioned.
So I always send my subject.
What's that?
I always send my subject.
Oh, no, I think we should pass it
Two?
to 2, but in the meantime, between now and July 1st and the full, we'll get some definitive answers whether or not we can do that, because this is just a committee meeting. We're not passing this local law right now. So Conrad, you'd be confident
I'll
in
look
getting some
into it.
information? Okay.
Yeah, not a
I'd
problem.
rather, instead of, I don't want to put it off for a month and then come back. Although March 1st is really the date that matters, really, because it's a tax status date, but I'd rather move on this in some fashion. Aaron, and then
I was just gonna ask one more too, on these. I remember the first time the go around was May 1st, that they had to get it through all the taxing entities.
March 1st, maybe?
On this one, yes, but if we were to change the other one as well, is it the same date? So March 1st is going to be, they're gonna have to get it through all the taxing entities on
Yeah,
March 1st on this
The tax
one.
status date for all the towns in pretty much the state is March 1st, and that's when your assessed value is determined, for whether it's a residential property, commercial, or whatever. So March 1st is the tax status date, so while we do have time, I'd rather,
No, yeah, because it has to go through all the others too.
Right,
That's
yeah,
why I
it's-
think it's
right.
important, and I think because there were fire departments that were held up and had to wait till the following year because
Right.
one of the taxing entities
Yep.
hit them hard. So I do think it's a good thing to move
Yep.
and put it forward, get the answers that we have, ask them, and be ready for it at the full. So thank you so much, Chairman, and to the committee.
If I could say, Chairman, and I don't hold the title of counsel, but I can say with great confidence that you do have that flexibility, because as I, myself, and Jerry Schremak went to the different taxing agencies with the real property law, we presented those options, that it was an option on the taxing agency from 0 to 5 for years of service, that New York said you can make the adjustment, and then from 0 to 10 on the tax assessment relief that any taxing agency could offer. So having gone through those various meetings, I would say with great confidence that flexibility, I do believe, is available to you. But
and putting the law aside for a moment, you're just saying from a recruitment effort, 2 is much more attractive than 5.
Oh, very much so. Yeah, very much so. And reasonable, honestly, right? It's much more reasonable. It's attainable.
Bill and Paul. Oh, Paul?
I'm reading the real property tax law. I could read the whole paragraph, but it says 5 years. It doesn't say 2 to 5 years.
Well, why don't we,
I could read it to you if you like, but,
We can pass it.
and I'm in favor of it
I
being
know you.
2,
I don't
I'm in
think
favor
so.
of it being 2 years, but the law doesn't, probably not gonna allow for it.
We would not have gotten it through the town of Southeast, the Brewster School District, and the fire commissioners. I believe the 466 has a -1 or -A1 attached to that.
Council.
Yeah, I know. I'm quite certain there were subsequent addendums to
Yeah.
that
It was a
law
different law.
that made that opportunity there.
Yeah,
That was
266.
different.
you know what we could
It was a
do?
different law.
We can do it either way. We could amend it
It's
here, or we
different
could
than
amend it
this
on the floor of the full. I do
Yeah.
think, and I take your point, Paul, but I do think to be fair to Conrad, we don't want to ask him to make a decision on the fly, and nor is it fair to ask him to do that. So what's your poison, guys? I'm happy to move it as amended, and then we'll get information back, and we could just put it back at 5 if we need to. That's good? All right. We're voting on the amendment first to go from 5 years to 2. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that's on the amendment. Before I go to the full vote, any other member, first one, do you have anything else?
Any other questions from the legislature? No?
Any other member of the public wish to speak on this? No, any other legislators? All right, now on the main question itself, as amended, you got that paragraph? Pat?
Yes.
As amended from 5 years down to 2, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. All right, that was item number 6, and thank you to the county executive for bringing this to our attention. This is something long overdue, and we'd like to take advantage of it. The next 2 items, items 7 and 8, the commissioners of elections aren't here tonight. They did speak with me, though. These both have to do with, these are both fund transfers. They did want to be here, but of course, we're in the middle of early voting. And of course, I think this will be also examined in audit as well. Amy, I don't know if the commissioner's election has spoken to you as well for audit, but they couldn't be here tonight, but they did go over with me. and I didn't request that they be here, they're doing the early voting. The first one is item number 7. It's a fund transfer, 25T151 for the Board of Elections for the Clear Ballot BDF creation. It is a $4,000 transfer. And this is for approval. Any questions from the,
Chairman Birmingham?
Yes.
It should be FYI, I apologize.
oh, both these are
Yeah.
FYI?
They're just for signature
Okay.
and audit, so they don't have to go to the full.
Okay, because they're under $5,000.
Right.
Okay, so, but still, we can have any discussion on it from the committee, from legislators, members of the public? All right, FYI for that. Same thing with number 8, right?
Yes, I apologize about
No,
that.
no problem, no problem. Yeah, the way it works is fund transfers are allowed to be signed by the audit chair as opposed to the full legislature if they're under a certain threshold. So the first one was 4,000. This next one, item 8, is an FYI. Again, Board of Elections for licensing for some software and accessories. It's for 1,000 FYI. I think our Board of Elections are doing a great job under tremendous strain, and this helps them do their job better. I'm in favor, but it is an FYI. So that's item number 8. Thank you. Item number 9, and this is an approval of that?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, perfect. This is for the SPCA county contribution, $50,000. It is a budgetary amendment. Funding for the Putnam County SPCA to be recouped via New York State SAM grant, state municipal grant. What this is we're increasing appropriations by $50,000, and we're increasing revenues by $50,000. Again, it's for the ASPCA. Any comments from the committee? From the legislature?
We have done this in the past. It's kind of a pass-through where this grant comes into the county and they apply for it, the grant comes into the county, and then we write it back to them so they can purchase a car or whatever these grant funds are awarded to fund. So, yeah, I'll certainly be supporting this, and maybe we can discuss this a little further in audit.
Any member of the public? All in favor? Aye. Item number 10, for my colleagues, is a confidential matter. It's our litigation report. We've all had it in our box for these 5 days. If there are any comments, I'd ask we go into executive session. I don't anticipate any, but it's just information. Since it is confidential, it's nothing for public discussion, so if you can understand that. And just don't get your credit guys. Item number 11, other business. Any other business from the committee? None? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. Thanks, folks. Sir.
evening, everyone, and welcome to the Fiscal Services Committee meeting. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Legislator Yonke, to be so kind as to lead us.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Clerk would perform roll call, please.
Legislator Crowley,
Present.
Legislator Yonke,
Present.
Chairman Elmer.
Here. Item 3 on the agenda is the acceptance of the Physical Services meeting minutes of April 14th. Agenda item 4 is the approval of the recommendations from the Putnam County Agricultural and Farmland Protection Board. And we have Christine Nastasi here.
Yes,
Did I pronounce that correctly?
yes, thank you.
I'd appreciate it if you would start and let's get to it.
Okay, so as per the mandate, we submitted a report on the 30th of May. However, I was not advised to the format that was preferred, so there was a revision, and that was submitted, I think the final one was submitted on June 10th. So we were in compliance with the revisions. We had 11 applicants this year. I'd like to point out that one farm called Artemis Farm, they were already in Ag District. When I spoke to the wife of Christoph Landon, she said, oh, that's not what we meant to fill out, so there was no vote necessary on that. And then also on the Bowen Farm, the acreage that he rents, 40 acres that he rents, is also in Ag District, but I do believe that it was recommended to include it in the total acreage, even though they're already in Ag District. Would you like me to go through the farms and tell you what we talked about and how we came to our conclusions?
I think just a brief summary, because what I've seen has been pretty thorough and very well done.
Okay, so there were 3 that we recommended not to include for various reasons. The other ones that the majority of the Ag Board felt that they fell within the guidelines of an agricultural district inclusion farm.
Does the committee have any questions? Do any of the legislators have any questions? Legislator Gould?
Thank you, Chairman. Item number 5, the form number 5, one of them that we're not recommending to put into the Ag District. The summary basically is a positive summary, and I would like it to be reconsidered, and I would like to vote on putting this into the Ag District.
Okay, so this is our recommendation.
Yes.
Right.
You guys do what you guys do.
Right. Bill, I just want to clear up any questions. What's my intention is to have a motion to accept the recommendations of the Ag District and move forward to the full for inclusion 7 properties: Barn Dog Farm, Big Red, Barn Farm, Bowen Farm, Cucumber Hill Farm, Lobster Hill Farm, Rush Family Farm, and White Oak Apiary. This is as agenda item 4. Is that okay? So does anybody on the committee have any comments regarding any of those properties? Any legislators on any of those properties? The public on any of those properties?
I do.
Yes.
Okay, so on the Barn Dog Farm, the discussion was that the owner has another farm, so this is an add-on. Although they had a lot of structure up, they didn't have any horses on the property, and there was nowhere to put a horse, which is a mandate of having a boarding farm. So they do have another, so the principal owner has another farm, but it is a different entity. If you have an owner that has land
and then she gets more land and wants to add it, if they're the same owner, that's a no-brainer.
Same entity, no brainer.
Correct.
Got it.
These are two different entities. That was my principal argument. I'm a horse farmer. I'm in that same, let's say, world as the barn dog, the barn dog farm. She didn't have any horses. We have, in past years, denied people from having one less than is recommended by the state. She had none. I'm happy to answer any additional questions on that.
Through the chair.
That's fine.
Yes.
I just have a question. So, I would agree with, I mean, there's no horses on the property. This is supposed to be a working business, and that's the purpose for trying to get into the ag district.
Yes.
They should be a business in place, and
Correct.
that's the reason they would go into the ag district. Since there's no horses on the property and it's a horse operation, I don't see how it could be added. So I'm trying to understand.
So my colleagues said she has this other farm in Brewster on Joe's Hill Road, so this is an add-on. But that farm on Joe's Hill Road is not owned by the same LLC that owns this property.
Yeah, I mean, me personally, I would have a problem with that, and that's what I was trying to understand, why there were 8 yeses and 2 nos. If that was the case. It's not the same owner.
Correct.
It's the same LLC.
Correct, it's not the same. That was my argument. My colleagues disagreed with me except for one. It was a vote of, it was 10 of us, 8 to 2.
Because we had a property last year in Putt Valley that had less than 10 horses.
And that's a little bit of a misnomer, if I may explain. So if you're applying for a boarding farm, boarding is a transient business. You're going to stay, you're going to leave, people are going to go to Florida for the winter, they're going to go to New England for the summer. So it says 10 horses, but it means 10 within a calendar year. It doesn't mean 10 when you go to visit it. And you can request boarding contracts, you can request cancel checks to prove it. Most of the time we just take people's word for it because they're in it to make money, so they're not going to say, yeah, I had 10 boarders when they didn't really.
Legislator Crowley?
So I'm going to ask, if I can be chair, but I'm also going to speak out, Commissioner Barosa to come up. But also, when we spoke on this issue, there are 3 main parcels that are included in this. And on these 3 parcels, they were haying on all 3 parcels.
No, they were not. They were haying on one
They
parcel.
were haying on all 3 parcels. Commissioner Barosa?
They were hanging
2, oh, I apologize, 2 of the
It's
parcels.
one and then part of it.
And didn't it squeak onto the 3rd a little bit, I thought?
I don't think so.
I thought that was part of it, but that was also why it was voted in for inclusion, was because haying is a part of farming. So that was the debate that we did have, and I feel like that's an important part to bring up as why the majority voted to include it, because there was agriculture being taken place, there was haying, and there was not horses there, but they are haying, they're actively haying. So that was my take from that. And I know your personal feelings on it, and I respect you, and I understand that, and I know in the past we have kept that people out, but haying is part of farming, and we have to recognize that. And even if you're feeding your horses, which it's still farming.
But that makes it a hobby farm. If you're growing hay to just feed your horses.
But she's not.
She is.
Commissioner?
She said that it was for her operation. Actually, she has 4 operations in the area, 4 horse farms. One other one in Putnam County, one just over the border in North Salem, and she has one, I believe, up in Dutchess. But she did say she has the hay 2 cuts a year for hers, but also horses that are being boarded, so she's selling it.
So
Yes.
I can tell you from experience, 5 acres does not feed enough horses, does not feed what the horses that she has at her other farm. 5 acres does not feed those horses and extra hay to sell.
I understand.
And, excuse me one second. So you looked on the map and you saw the 5 acres and the hay was growing a little bit into the section?
That's what it appeared.
Because they told me when we went to the visit, they said that this 5 acre parcel were haying. They didn't say that it was part of the other
And that's one
parcel
parcel.
also. Correct.
And that's identified as one 5-acre parcel, not the other 60 acres.
Correct.
But the issue was that it was a big debate
Yeah, it
at the
was.
board meeting.
And it was
And ultimately, eight
majority.
people decided
Yeah,
that was enough
that
of
it was
the.
enough, yes.
Okay.
And I think as a,
I have a question for council. Okay. Council, okay. Equine is a little bit different. Is this applicant, are they coming in as a hay farm or are they coming in as an equine operation?
I would have to look over the application to find out exactly what they put, what they were applying as, and then I would have to look at the law as for specifics. I wouldn't be able to answer off the top of my head.
Okay, and where I'm going with this, and please correct me if I'm wrong, if it's an equine operation and you don't have the requisite number of horses and the requisite amount of revenue for a period of 2 years, you're not entitled to protections under ag markets law.
I do believe that is correct.
a startup also could fall under as well.
Okay?
That's
It's
correct.
different with horses for startups.
I know you voted differently on this, and I
Well, let's
respect
go,
that.
let's do everything through the chair, please. Let's go. And I see someone in the, please.
Hi. Jamie Spillane, Hogan Rossi on the Berry. We actually represent this applicant. We weren't here for this matter tonight, but I could speak to the application. This application was applied for both as a hay and equestrian operation. And when it comes to the ownership of property, beneficial ownership is the same in this property as it is in the other property in Putnam County. We're talking about Barn Dog and Barn Dog 2 LLC. Both have the same member as the owner of the parcels. As was stated, there is a beneficial ownership is the same. This is a 42-stall horse barn that is near completion, but there is also a haying operation, which it was testified to that they're making at least $14,000 a year, which meets that $10,000 income. So on its
Excuse me,
own,
$10,000 for horses.
$10,000 income per year for
Right,
the
and-
farm operation. They're making that in the haying in and of itself, without the horses, without even including horse operation on site. They're making that money within the hay operation itself.
Okay, so you're saying hay sales alone. Okay.
Yes, and I did view the meeting of the Agriculture and Farm Protection Board. Respectfully, the entire board discussed this matter, and 2 members voted no. However, the majority of the board voted yes on this application, so I believe for the chair to come up here tonight and make their own position on this, the board should be reviewing the entire recommendation of the entire Agriculture and Farm Protection Board, which recommended inclusion of this property after having this discussion.
Well, let's, look, this is a discussion. Anyone who's in this room is open to say what they want. So let's get it
Absolutely.
all out in the open, okay?
Absolutely, but as indicated, this is, the beneficial ownership of the properties is the same, it's the same member of the entities. This is an active boarding operation on Jones Hill with this new additional parcel that's being completed on Ridgeberry Road. Completion of the 42 stalls is expected in July. However, they meet the requirements to be in the ag district even without those stalls, with just the haying operation that occurs on site.
Are there any other comments?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, please state your name and
My name's Don Rossi. Jamie and I are from the same firm, and I just want to speak to the beneficial ownership. I think
can you please elaborate on beneficial ownership?
Yes, and that's the main reason I wanted to come up to speak on it. It would be restrictive on a landowner who is going to be purchasing multiple properties for farming to require that the same entity own every piece of property. So in this case, as Jamie mentioned, these are LLCs that only have one member. And her name is Wendy Janeski, and she is the sole member of both LLCs. So what I mean by beneficial ownership is just that, like a shareholder or a member. A member of the LLC is the owner of that entity. And one of the common practices when you're dealing with clients who are able to purchase multiple properties is you really do not want to have all their eggs in one basket and have each property owned by the same entity. Because if, God forbid, there was any liability, or damages were awarded against one, those damages and the judgment that could run would then apply to not only the farm on which the injury may have occurred, but it would attach to all of the different properties that that same individual owned. So I think that differentiating in a case where a member, where one person is a member of different LLCs but engaged in essentially the same operation, I think would be unfair and not consistent with the agricultural benefits that are provided under the Ag and Markets Law.
Thank you.
And I just want to make one further statement. When it comes to horse farms, in the first year of operation, they can qualify as a startup operation. So that 2-year requirement does not apply to the horse equestrian operations.
Well, my two different issues from what's been discussed is admission versus protections are two completely different issues. So start up for admission, but until they have the requisite number of horses and the requisite revenue from equine operations, they don't necessarily get protections afforded an equine operation in the ag district.
They do have the haying operation, but startups, Ag and Markets is very clear that startups can apply and can be eligible for an agricultural district admission.
Legislature Sage.
To the chair, for the council, for the barn dog. I just have a question about, you said there were different LLCs for each of these parcels, is that correct?
For these 3 parcels are owned in common ownership. The parcel on Joe's Hill is in a different LLC.
Okay, so these 3 parcels are the same LLC?
Absolutely.
Okay, so this is a different, okay, all right, thank you. Appreciate that.
Any other comments? So at this point, like I said, I'd like to make a motion to accept the recommendations. Oh, yes?
Sorry, may I make a comment? May I speak to a farm that is not on your current?
We're going to do that in agenda item 4A.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to make a motion to accept the recommendations of the Ag Board and move forward to the 7 recommended properties: Barn Dog Farm, Big Red Barn Farm, Bowman Farm, Cucumber Hill Farm, Lobster Hill Farm, Rush Family Farm, White Oak Apiary. Do I have a second? Second. All's in favor? Aye. Okay. Second. Yes, that's, we were gonna. Diane, what's the best way to handle this? Because there were 2 people who requested to be on the agenda, and I said yes. Is this an agenda? Is an additional, or just because it's already on the agenda?
You could allow them to speak. The first one, I think, did ask for one of the people in the list, right? So that's the additional number 4 that I gave you.
Right, so
Miss Crystal
within,
Stowell.
okay, there are 2 farms where I'd like to have them speak, and one of them is, again, the same attorneys for Rainmaker Farm, and after we speak about them, the next one is Clara Patunga, if I'm pronouncing that right. So these were 2 farms who did not receive the Ag Board's recommendation, and we'd like to go over those. So the people from Rainmaker Farm, if you'd be so kind.
James Blaine again, Hogan Rossi and LaGuardia for Rainmaker Farm. So we asked to be in front of you tonight regarding the recommendation not to include Rainmaker Farm East at 122 Federal Road into the Ag District at this time. Rainmaker Farm East is a property that's owned and being developed by Harold Leffler, who formerly owned Rainmaker Farm and has owned a number of parcels for farming purposes in Putnam County and has been farming in Putnam County for 40 years. He has been making the required farming for 20 years, and we have submitted this application under the statement that this is viable agricultural land. The property has recently had the footings installed for the addition of the barn, and my understanding from the Agriculture and Farmland Protection Board is that everyone acknowledged that Mr. Lepler has been actively farming in the county, and they believe that this will be an active farm operation. They don't doubt it in any way. However, their recommendation not to include was solely based on the fact that the horses are not on site at this time. The agriculture and market law in no place states that horses need to be on site or that the farm has to have the infrastructures completed in order for the property to be included as viable agricultural land. In order to be included, it has to be land that's highly suitable for a farm operation. Mr. Lepler has been operating a farm operation as indicated for 40 years and has continued that farm operation, though he hasn't had land in Putnam County in the last 6 months to a year. He has still continued his farm operation, and this is really more akin to an addition of land to an already active farm operation than it is to a startup. However, in the alternative, if you did view it as a startup, there is nothing in the law that does not allow the inclusion of a startup into the agricultural district, especially in a situation like this where you have a known farmer who's been running an active farm operation in the county for years, and there is no question that he is going to continue with that active farm operation in future years at this parcel. As I indicated, there has been additional construction on the site since the Agriculture and Farm Protection Board.
Do we know when the site visit occurred versus when these other footings, as you said? And I'm assuming that all permits from
Yes.
the town of Southeast are in place.
Yes, I believe that the farm visit occurred, the meeting was May 23rd, and I believe that the farm visit had occurred earlier in that week, and the footings had been scheduled and they were placed the following week. They had been indicated at that farm site visit that they were expected to be installed in the upcoming week. There is a building permit for the construction on the site.
Legislator Crowder's got the floor.
I'm sure you watched the video. I know Mr. Lepler has done wonderful things in farming. I have a question for you. I think, I believe in his wisdom and knowledge, and I know the plan there. I did not get to go because unfortunately I was away that week. I did hear there was a very long tour in the rain, so everybody who went, it was wonderful. Would we be able to possibly entertain tabling this and going out for another site visit? To see if there's something as far as, like the new construction that's going on, because if something's progressed and we want to talk about startup farms, the other 3 farms that were not included were also startups, and if they progressed then too, then we should treat them all the same. They were all not included for the same reason, so if that's the case, then we should treat them all, I feel like the same.
I agree that we should treat everybody the same.
So the other 3 that were not included were because there wasn't enough farming going on. So if we have moved forward and people have then continued to go through the process and build and show, that there's movement, because the days have been nicer, things have progressed, I think this would be wonderful and something that I would like to entertain.
I'm going to go a little out of order. Christine, please, you were about to say something.
So the first site visit was Tuesday, May 6th, and the second site visit was Tuesday, May 13th. And if you allow visits after the inclusion date and after the date that we're mandated to set a report, then what's the point of having the Ag Board at all? And it would just be a free-for-all. Whenever you apply, we would go out and visit you.
I agree.
And on May 6th, that's the date that I went, there was nothing. It was just basically like item 4, and he told us about the barn. And breeding is even more selective to get into Ag District, according to New York State, than a lesson barn or a boarding barn. You have to show that you've been breeding more than one horse for several years, and almost anything could be viable land for agriculture. He's in the middle of the forest, which is nothing wrong with, but it's not normal, what we would normally consider viable land for especially a horse farm. Most horse farms have cleared lands with pastures. This is in the woods, which again, there's nothing wrong with that. You can put your paddocks in the woods, it's perfectly fine. But to say that, to look at it, it is viable agricultural land, I disagree with that. And again, with the breeding, New York State, let me just back up a little bit. You guys can let anybody you want in the ag district. You can let a patch of land this big that has one tomato plant on it. But if that farmer has trouble with the town and then wants to go to the state for help because they're in the ag district is going to scrutinize to make sure they fulfill requirements for New York State will support them. I don't know if everybody knows that.
Legislator Young.
I just heard you talk about viable farmland. We just lost a lawsuit over viable farmland.
Right.
Right, so I don't want to get tied up in this. This is someone who's had a well-known breeding operation for how many years?
For 40 years.
He didn't stop his operation just
No.
because he's moving his farm.
No.
He's still breeding horses.
That's why I wanted to clarify. I did say in the alternative a startup, but really I don't see this as a startup operation. This is an ongoing farm operation that purchased new property. Continuing the operation that's been ongoing for 40 years. He's shown an income over $50,000 for 20 years. This has been a commercial boarding stable and a breeding operation. Now he is just transitioning into just being a breeding operation. But Mr. Lepler can show that income from significant years past, way more than 2 years past, because he's been an ongoing farm operation.
Legislator Sage.
I was gonna state the same thing that Christine talked about as far as dates for visiting properties. We have a certain inclusion period that we have to go within. We can't just willy-nilly go out and say, well, gosh, they built another property, so maybe we can, or the building. Anyway, I digress. So the ag inclusion district goes to the parcel.
Correct.
Not the person. So we're talking, these are new parcels. So we have to look at these specific parcels.
May I?
Not the person, correct?
Yes and no. May I?
Yes, please.
Okay, so for instance, White Oak Apiary, he has ag district on a different plot in a different part of Brewster. He applied to put his less than 2 acre plot that he has in a different part of Brewster into the ag district as an add-on. So what he's doing at that first spot, he's going to be doing at that second spot. They're going to enhance each other. Mr. Lepler doesn't have any, he sold his farm, and he hasn't had a farm in, as far as I know, Putnam County. I know Brewster. He hasn't had a farm in Brewster for several years. I understand that he may have been breeding some mares elsewhere in the country. I don't know if he has been or not, and I don't see how that's pertinent because you need to be farming in Putnam County. And again, the breeding is more strict.
Conrad? We've discussed this before, and I appreciate it, regarding a startup.
I mean, we're talking about a subjective standard. If the legislature is satisfied that this meets the standard of what it considers a legitimate startup, then it could vote to admit the parcel into the district.
Okay, so any startup
Yes,
is eligible for inclusion in the district?
yes, that's what
Okay.
we discussed.
Regardless of how far along they've gotten in terms of construction?
The legislature has that discretion.
Again, Legislator Sage.
I mean, I would be concerned about construction, and I mean, I would want to make sure that that is all gone through the town, and the town has the oversight on that, rather than having it go into the ag district, and then you start building stuff, and then you have to go to your neighbor. You know, it seems backwards, and I think I don't see any reason, and I'm respectful of this farming operation, and I really am excited to see it. I don't see the harm in getting this completed and applying again next year. I mean, I don't know what the they can always reapply and very easily get right back in. So, I mean, for me, I would stick with the Ag Board's recommendation on this particular project.
I think there are benefits outside of town zoning code by being in the ag district. There's financial issues, and I could see why.
There's a number of benefits, but on top of it, this isn't a situation where the applicant is trying to get around zoning in any way. They have a building permit for the building that is in construction currently. There's no intention of not doing everything they can to be compliant with all zoning regulations, and the applicant has demonstrated their history of being a good neighbor and a farmer within the town of Southeast and other municipalities as well, as he started a number of farm operations. He actually was one of the first parcels that was admitted into the ag district for 266 Joe's Hill Road. So he's demonstrated, and that does matter as part of a farm operation because, as Christina had stated, it is the land, but it's the farm operation also. It's not just the land that farm is on, right? That was the issue that was presented last year with soil and things of that nature. It's not just the land, it's also the operation, which comes from the individual who is doing it, showing that they make the income, showing that they have a history in this situation, a demonstrated history of going through, so it's not a situation where you're worried that you're admitting a parcel that's not going to become a farm, or that you're admitting a parcel that's going to try to take advantage of some kind of regulations. That's not what the history is here. There's a demonstration by our client for the last 40 years that's not what's happening here. So it is a unique situation in that way that you've got the commercial aspect that's been shown for the last 40 years that they're a commercial farming operation. There's no question that this is any other kind of farming operation. And you have an individual that's shown their determination to move forward with the farm operation in the town of Southeast and the county of Putnam.
Any other comments from any of the legislators or anybody in the public? No? Yes?
I just want to say that, the startup is a totally different situation.
I'm sorry.
I mean, the other three that were not included they all based it on a startup farm that were not included. They would all hold the same water to be reconsidered if we were looking at it that way. So I just want to bring that up because they all were startups.
Anybody else? See, my thinking, because we haven't necessarily got it right in the past, that I really don't want to deny anybody the opportunity to come before the full legislature, I'm bad with that, people, sorry, legislature and participate in a public hearing. So being that this could be considered a startup, and I'm getting a nod from legislative council, and I want to treat all startups fairly, I'm going to make a motion to approve and move this applicant to the full. Do I have a second? Have a roll call vote, please.
Legislator Crowley?
Yes.
Legislator Yonke?
Yes.
Chairman Elner?
Yes.
Thank you.
Now, the next parcel in a similar situation is Clara Patunga Farm, and my understanding is we have Crystal Stowell. Is that, I pronounced that correctly?
Yes.
To speak with us.
Okay.
Welcome, Crystal. Please
Thank
tell
you.
us.
Good evening, my name is Crystal Stoll and I'm a resident of Putnam Valley. As Vice President of the Putnam Valley Grange, I'm here today to champion the cause of all startup farms and their rightful inclusion within the agricultural district. In the particular, I strongly urge you to vote in favor of Clara Patunga Farm. Clara Patunga Farm is a startup family farm located in Putnam Valley, offering a diverse selection of produce, including apples, pears, peaches, plums, elderberries, mulberries, blueberries, and honey. The farm is committed to sustainable agriculture practices and providing the community with access to clean and healthy food. Given its production of fresh fruits and locally produced honey, Clara Patunga Farm clearly meets the definition of a farm operation and viable agricultural land under Ag and Markets law. While I appreciate that evaluating a startup farm may seem subjective, Ag and Markets provides comprehensive resources that aim to ensure fair assessments and to support the growth of new agricultural businesses. For starters, municipalities are expected to grant new farms a reasonable period to establish their operations and crop production. Specifically, a 2-year startup period is recommended for apiaries, and a 3 to 5 year startup period is recommended for orchards and berries. While currently producing modest amounts of fruit and honey, Clara Petunga Farm is still in its early developmental stages and requires several more years to mature and enhance its yield. To be clear, this information does not support delaying Clara Petunga Farm's inclusion in the agricultural district. On the contrary, this farm and all emerging farms would greatly benefit from immediate inclusion while being granted a reasonable period to establish their operations and crop production in accordance with Ag and Markets guidance. This would secure vital protections under Ag and Markets law, which are especially crucial to startup farm operations while their crops become fully established. In addition to this reasonable period for establishment, when assessing startup farms, Ag and Markets states that a number of other factors should also be considered, including but not limited to the landowner's intent, the time and effort spent on farming, and whether the landowner has the knowledge needed to carry on the farming activity as a successful business. The owner of Clara Petunga Farm holds a bachelor's degree in agriculture, featuring extensive coursework in agricultural marketing, agricultural law, environmental law, and agricultural education. Complementing this academic background, he brings practical farming experience from Green Chimney's organic farm and has submitted a comprehensive business plan with his application for expansion of his farm operation. Based on Ag and Markets law, which specifically encourages the inclusion of startup farms in agricultural districts, it is imperative to acknowledge Clara Petunga Farm as a legitimate farm operation, regardless of its current scale or yield. Further, the owner is well equipped with the necessary knowledge, training, experience, and determination to effectively execute his business strategy, clearly qualifying Clara Petunga Farm for Ag District inclusion. Your affirmative vote would positively align with the intent of the Ag and Markets law and directly support the promotion and protection of a startup family farm. Thank you.
Crystal, if you'd be so kind, please tell everybody here what Putnam Valley Grange is.
The Grange is an association that supports local agriculture and our farmers here.
Thank you. Anybody on the committee have any questions? Yes.
I see Mr. Wolkin is here. You're the owner of the farm?
Yes.
Do you mind if I ask a couple questions?
Absolutely.
You've called this office a number of times, right?
Yes.
You represented to the staff that you lived in my district when you wanted to talk to me. Is that true or false?
I don't recall.
Sorry?
I don't recall.
You called this office, that's not a question now. You called this office and told people that you lived in my district. You used a fake name. Is that true or false?
I don't recall. I speak to a lot of people in regards to agriculture.
Well, why would you use a fake name?
Is this in line with this?
Yeah, what it,
Yeah, well, if I'm going to vote on someone, I want to know who I'm talking to. So I think it is in line.
Counselor?
Have you used a fake name to reach out to me?
I don't recall.
Wow.
Yeah, what, does this have to do with?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to know the character of somebody who's...
The character?
Point of order.
Which
No,
is,
Decorum. From you?
hey, let's keep this civil.
No, I've gotten a number of phone calls. You've called me a number of times. You used a fake name. You said that you lived in my district. You tried to record the phone conversations without my knowledge or consent. And now you're here and you want something. I just wonder, my question is, why were you dishonest with me?
I was trying to get through to people and educate them on what agricultural district is and the benefits to farming in this community. And I think there was a misunderstanding from years passed on from different groups of different, on what the agricultural district is.
So you lied about your residency and your name?
I don't recall lying. I do know I spoke to a lot of people.
Is your name Andrew Smith?
No. My name is
Well,
Andrew.
that's the name that was left on a message when I called you back, and I asked for Mr. Smith, and you said yes.
I'm sure there are a lot of Smiths. I don't know.
So why would you use that name?
I'm not sure it was me. My name's Andrew Wolkin from Putnam Valley.
You told me after I asked you if you knew this law.
Yeah, I didn't know what this,
It's like you were dishonest with me, that's all.
okay.
Thank you.
I don't think
Thank you.
Legislator Goldman?
Mr. Wilcox is a very educated individual on farming, and I would like to have this farm be approved to be added into the agricultural district. It's a future, very positive farm, and I'm looking forward to buying products from him, and I would like it to be added.
Legislator Crowell?
Thank you, Chairman. So just on the last farm alone, we talked about startups, right? So on that basis, and we also have the 8-year review is coming up in what year? 2 years?
2 years.
2 years. So that would essentially give us the ability to look at these startups, right? And then go back in 2 years, which we are required to do, and see, have they actually brought their business plan to fruition? We have never essentially looked at startups before. We haven't been doing things the right way. It's time that we start looking at this the right way. So if we have the 8-year review in 2 years, I have no problem with allowing startups in and moving it forward based on principle and what a startup is, not on personality disagreements, and then reviewing them in 2 years and seeing if they actually brought their business plan to fruition, and if they didn't. That will give us the guidance that we need. We just passed one before, and I think the other gentleman right now, it was during the Ag Board meeting, was the same thing. It was a startup, and the third one that was declined was also a startup proceeding. It was all three were considered startups.
No.
And
The third one has been in business a couple of years, 3 or 4 years. It's on his
Okay,
application.
we'll stick to this
Stick
one.
to this
But
one,
I do
please.
believe that with the 8-year review, that really gives us the ability to look at our decisions and say, did we make the right ones with startups? What is a startup? What exactly do we want to do as we're working on a resolution throughout the rest of the year? That's my personal opinion.
Christine, if you would please go over the reasons for, I'm sorry, I'm going to ask Legislator Stage if you want to chime in before.
I just want to say, what's the purpose of having an ag board? I mean, they've all gone out with their expert opinions to assess these farms. Why don't we just let everybody in who's got a garden and just decide if they're a startup in 2 years? I mean, I would like to defer to that professional opinion of the agricultural board that we've appointed here in Putnam County, and I think that's who we need to rely on, not just put everybody in and then, let's see in 2 years. I respectfully disagree with that assessment.
Okay, I agree with you, but there's been delays in terms of getting our inclusion criteria correct. It's something that has to be worked on. I think we really need to get that there. But with that being said, that's just a personal opinion. I'd like to know why the Ag Board voted not to include this particular farm.
There were 2 hives. One had literally, the day before we first arrived, one had been destroyed by a bear. So there were only a couple hives. There were multiple species of fruit trees, but none of them were really bearing fruit, not enough to really put out at a farm stand in front of your house. And the same thing with the vegetable beds. They were present, but it appeared that it wasn't really enough to have any significant sales from. He has great vision as to what he wants to do, and we all felt that apply next year and we probably won't have any problem. Not we all, I don't want to speak for everyone else. It was 2 yeses, 7 noes, and 1 abstention. So the majority of the board felt next year, no problem.
Yeah, I would just caution, some of these votes could be used as precedent in the future. So just keep a long-range view of the, I know we are, but let's just keep that in mind too. That I do rely on our volunteer boards for the expertise and That's all I'm saying.
And just to add to what Chairman Nastasi said, as far as rising to the level, it could be a startup. I know in the language it said it is a startup. It could be a startup, but that's subjective. I personally thought it would be very difficult for them to get to the level of a commercial farm. So there's multiple opinions on that, and that all played into the vote. So.
Anyone else? Yes?
I'd like to defer to council in the terminology of what exactly a startup is, because we have to be fair. Excuse me?
Nothing.
Sorry, I didn't know if you were speaking. We want to be clear, we've made mistakes, and as Chairman Elner said, we still have a lot of work to do on this resolution and making things better. I don't want to set a precedent that's bad by any stretch of the imagination. I think we've already done that. But I want to be clear on what a startup is. We just passed a startup, and that was with footings. And yes, he has great history in the community, and I know he's going to bring this to fruition. He's done it many times before with great ease, and I know that. But that's because he's been kicking around for a long time and people know him. I think we have to give a fair shot to people that not everybody knows too, and we're going to base putting it through committee like we just did because he's got a reputation to do so. We have to treat everybody fairly. So I'd like to know exactly, is that precedent? I mean, how does that work legally?
Through the chair, if I may. I don't have any specific language in front of me to give you what the agriculture and markets law says, so I can't give you that off the top of my head. What I can tell you is that the legislature has a lot of discretion on what they want to consider. And they really need to consider both the precedential value of any decision they make, as well as the fact that each individual applicant needs to be looked at on its own merits, looking at the totality of everything about the application. So, whereas this applicant is distinct from the prior applicant who has 40 years of experience, active horses off-site, building permits, plans, all of this in the works. Yes, I mean, that is a lot different than a smaller farm on an acre of land that just had one of its, beehives destroyed by a bear. So there's no one right answer, and while precedent is something that is going to come into play with every decision that you make, you also have to look at the individual circumstances. So while I unfortunately can't give you a textbook definition based on the law because I don't have it in front of me, that's the insight I can provide.
And with education, does that also come into play too? Because the
Yes.
education on this particular farm was something that I believe should be discussed too. That was a big part of it. If we're going to talk about, Rainmaker Farm before.
Look, I just want to be fair to everyone.
That's what I agree with.
Okay,
I think
and that's where I'm coming from. And I'm going to say this only for myself, that I think that we should pass this along, but this is no indication of how votes are going to go with the full, and I think there'll be more time at that to digest this situation. I see a hand in the back. Someone would like to speak.
Hi, Ariel Regrant. One kind of point I wanted to make, and then just something else I wanted to say. The county law department argued my background in the past when we were kind of going through this originally, so I just kind of want to make that point with my bachelor's in animal science and my master's in special ed. That background at that point was irrelevant, so just a statement that I wanted to make. A few other things I wanted to thank you guys. I felt very different last year standing in this spot, so I want to appreciate the open-mindedness that I feel at this point. And this may be selfish to say, but I worked really hard to where we got. And I hate to separate and not separate from other applicants, but my husband and I built our farm from nothing. I didn't come from money. I had no help. We had nothing. We have no staff. You've all seen my 2-year-old. I did it with him on my back. And so I I spent more money on lawyers than I even made in livestock sales last year. And I'm never going to see that money back, which is really upset that I had to sue over that, get nothing back. So I really hope that that helps set a precedence. Sucks for me. Sorry for the cursing. But there's people sitting here doing things maybe different, maybe similar, but I really hope that with this open-mindedness that everyone has, that you really are looking not just at the paper with the application, but the people and how hard they're working, and you're really judging your own personal votes. I know that's kind of full-fledged stuff. You're really focusing on, like, does this farm deserve it? Do they actually meet the real criteria? And are they deserving of why they are applying? So I want to appreciate you guys being open-minded, and I know I'm one person, but this has affected us in more ways than any of you will ever understand, and I hope that no one else has to go through what we did that is deserving of that seat, because I know that I of us. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes.
How's it going? Happy Purple Pen Day, as I call it. Ray Harris, Carmel Hamlet. Just wanted to say how relieved I am that for however many consecutive years another commercial weed dispensary has not made it through to the ag board, so to the ag district, so that's good. The other thing I just wanted to say is that, to echo Ariel's sentiments, I've been here to see how contentious these conversations can get. I think what's been evident tonight is that there really does need to be some criteria put in place. There is a lot of confusion, there's a lot of uncertainty as to who meets and who doesn't meet certain requirements, whether it's breeding, whether it's startups, whether it's whatever the case is. And that's creating, again, just a lot of uncertainty, not just amongst yourselves, but amongst the public at large. And so I would just ask you, as best you can, I know these are all part-time jobs, but to accelerate those discussions and see if we can get to a place where there's some clear criteria so that we're not in a situation where we feel bad, we have regretful decisions that we've made from the past, and we have experiences like what the Hanabiches experienced in Ridge Ranch, where they have not just lost time and money, but they've left there's a bitter taste in their mouth about the entire experience. We don't want anyone else to have to go through that. But on that note, I would just again commend you all for taking this process extremely seriously, getting through all the details, and as Ariel said, being very open-minded. So thank you all for that. Appreciate it.
Anyone else? I want to be fair to everybody, and like I said, I think that this deserves the scrutiny of the full legislature with a public hearing. So I'm going to make a motion to move this applicant forward to the full.
I'm going to second you.
Is there a second? Roll call vote, please.
Legislator Crowley?
Yes.
Legislator Yonke?
No.
Chairman Elner?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Now we're at agenda item 5.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Did you want to talk about the third one that we didn't include?
They have not requested.
Okay.
If you would like to talk about them, by all means, but they had not requested an audience.
I believe the general thing is that we should talk about all the ones that we didn't include.
Please, by all means.
This gentleman, his name is Peter Clark. He has applied previously. He writes on his application that the principal operation is poultry, eggs, horticulture greenhouse, Christmas trees, and nursery. None of these things were visible, and he couldn't, if they were in the back, he didn't bring us to show them. There was no greenhouse or anything like that. And the one thing that he did talk about was he put in some fruit trees on a little section of the hill. They were barely saplings. They were not bearing fruit for years. And the other thing that he did discuss at length was that he buys arborvitaes at wholesale, and he sells them direct to consumers down, I think he said, in the Bronx, because he was a nurse at some big hospital down there, and he has lots of contacts. So the arborvitaes were in pots, which that's normal. You buy slips of arborvitaes, and then you grow them, and then you sell them, depending upon how tall they are, that's how much, they cost more the taller they are. But as far as farming himself, we didn't see any of that going, and as you can see, I believe that this is the only no that had 10 no's.
Yes.
So even the farmer who's like, let's give him a chance, she's like, yeah, no. And it's been going on for at least 2 years that I know of, the last year and this year.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Through the chair. I could be wrong, and the legislative clerk may be able to correct me on this, but I do believe the legislature is required to actually render a vote, which should then go on to the full about whether this application is going to be approved or not approved.
Not following the comment.
So all of the applications have been submitted to the legislature,
Yes.
and the legislature has to vote either yes or no. So, Dan, how have we dealt with this in years
So
past?
they did vote to accept
We
the
voted to accept
original
the Board
recommendation,
7
and then they
recommended.
did vote to
okay,
amend
so
the
they already
two.
approved the recommendations except for the two exceptions.
And then they voted to accept and amend those recommendations.
Okay, so that means all of the recommendations were kept except for the two that were heard separately, and those ones were amended accordingly?
Yep.
Yes.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item 5 is the approval for a secret determination. Commissioner Barosa. This is for Terry Hill Road, County Road 46, and Route 311.
This is the conclusion of the environmental review for the intersection of Route 311 and Terry Hill DPW project to improve that intersection. Sorry. This is the determination saying that there is no negative impacts from the project. There are no negative impacts as a result.
Okay, any questions of the legislature? Any questions of the public? Yes, Steve?
Yeah, I know we have the schematics in front of us, but could you just, for the public, generally describe the kind of intersection improvements? I know Tommy's here too, but...
Tommy would probably be a better person to...
I'll put you on the spot. No, just because it is, I travel that sometimes, and right now it is kind of difficult to make a right turn out of that.
Yes.
Onto 311 coming from Terry Hill.
There'll be turning lane on Terry
There will
Hill.
be,
Yep,
okay.
yep, yep, and widening the whole intersection. There will be some landing spots for pedestrians for the walkways.
Okay.
Small, but it's a landing spot.
And signalization as well.
Signalization.
Oh, that's good. It's my town, so that's...
It's needed. Yeah, it's really dangerous. It's definitely.
It is.
Yeah.
Any other questions? No? Okay, so I'll make the motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Agenda item 6 is the approval of our proposed public transportation agency safety plan.
So the USDOT has updated the regulations requiring, we have had to prepare a safety plan for several years now. In September, they added new regulations that we have to analyze the impact and the potential for transit worker assaults. So that has been added to the safety plan.
Any questions of the committee? Legislators, public, council, has the law department reviewed this resolution?
As I haven't been assigned that, I can't say for certain, Chairman.
Barbara, has the law department reviewed this resolution, or is it a recycling of a previous
It's
one?
recycling, and I also sent it over to law for review.
Thank you. Make a motion to approve, move to the full. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Item 7 is the approval ratification of applications for a grant funding through the 2025 Consolidated Funding Application Program to improve water quality and maintain infrastructure. Commissioner Grosso.
So the consolidated funding application process has begun for the year. So that's all of, well, most of the state grants are eligible to apply for the year. We're planning to apply for 4 different grants if the legislature approves. One is for a strategic plan to analyze the county-owned buildings and look to see if there could be consolidation or shifting of departments that makes sense, and whether we want to keep everything that we have. All of that would be included in that. Another one is for Continental Dam, the analysis and design for the work that is needed on that project. The other one is to purchase vacuum trucks for DPW. Sweepers, and resolution, there's one more. And the final is for parks to pave the oldest portion of the trails.
Okay. And the total is $1,175,000.
So the resolution breaks down the estimated cost and the CFA, what we would be applying for. So the difference is what the county share would be.
Okay, but the grant, $300,000 for the trail maintenance, $375,000 for Continental Dam, $400,000 for the vacuum trucks, and $100,000 for the strategic plan.
Correct.
Any questions of the committee? Legislators? Yes.
Let me just be clear, each of these funding amounts would require a county match.
Yes.
CFA funding is typically 50% match.
It depends on the opportunity. Some are 80% and 20% county match.
Great, thank you.
Anyone else? I move that we approve and pass this to a full. Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor? Aye. Agenda item 8, approval of a budgetary amendment, 25A052, amend the capital projects 52405. This is the Sheriff's Office Life Safety Systems Modernization. We have Commissioner Fieri and Deputy Commissioner Belushi of DPW. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for coming.
This was a project we undertook in '24. I think it was late summer, early fall. It is substantially complete now, but we identified 2 items that we need to address, with additional funding as part of this budgetary. The overall project included fire alarm and lighting control graphic improvements along with the intercom system devices. It was about a $700,000 project. And this would be another $16,000 to see it through. So
the fiscal impact of this year on this transfer is $16,000.
Yes.
Any questions of the committee? Legislators? Public? Make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Agenda item 9 is another budgetary amendment, 25A055, Planning Department to correct state aid funding source through New York State DOT. It says Commissioner Lewis, I don't see him, so Commissioner Barosa is kind enough to help us out.
So we had received, we actually receive annual allocation from the MEP, Modernization and Enhancement Program for transportation. This was a allocation, I believe it was from 2021 that we received, that we put in a grant application for a trolley. It was erroneously labeled as state aid section 5307, so we're just correcting the line into MEP.
So we're moving $137,909 from the incorrect budget line to the correct budget line with 0 fiscal impact.
Yes.
Discussion? of the committee, legislators, public, make a motion to approve. Do I have a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Agenda item 10 is a budgetary transfer, 25T165, MTA Railroad Station Maintenance Costs. Okay, and it says here it's to cover a deficit, and Commissioner Lewis, who is going to be here, apparently he's not, so it looks like what we're being asked to do is take $20,798 from contingency, so we have to pay the MTA for railroad station maintenance. This is an additional based on a $1,220,798 that we've already paid. Any questions, comments of the committee, legislators, the public? I move we approve and send this to a full. Do I have a second? All those in favor? Aye. I have some other business here. It's item 11A. It has to do with soil and water board appointments. I make a motion to accept the other business. Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, the soil and water board has 2 vacancies. One vacancy is to be filled by recommendation of the Farm Bureau. The other vacancy is an at-large seat. There were 3 applicants. The Farm Bureau applicant is Ms. Cassandra Roth. There were some questions which she answered and confirms that she has 100% eligibility. The at-large seat is for applicant Mr. Brett Yaris. The third applicant doesn't meet the requirements because that at-large seat, you must be a Putnam County resident. So, any discussion from the committee? Legislators? No? So I'd like to make a motion to move to the full so we can appoint Cassandra Roth and Brett Yaris to the Soil and Water Conservation Board. Second. Roll call vote.
Legislator Crowley,
Yes, and thank you for taking on these volunteer positions.
Legislator Yaki,
Yes.
and Chairman Elner.
Yes. Seeing that there's no other business, I move that we adjourn.
And may I make a comment about the Soil and Water Conservation District appointments as well?
No comments.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Well, we haven't adjourned, so that's what we didn't vote, so we're still, go ahead.
On behalf of Putnam Valley Grange, we would like to address a crucial matter concerning the interpretation of New York Soil and Water Conservation District Law, Article 2, Part 6, which states, one of the farmers on this board shall be appointed from a list submitted by the county grange. First, we would like to emphasize that this provision is not advisory, it is mandatory. The law does not grant the county the discretion to eliminate or substitute these seats with general members at large. If no grange exists in a county, the law permits the selection of a practical farmer from the county at large. However, that exception does not apply here as Putnam Valley Grange is active and recognized by the New York State Grange. We understand that the Putnam County Law Department has raised concerns specifically about the existence of a county grange in Putnam County, and we wish to clarify this point. While the statute refers to a county grange, it's important to note that there are no legal or structural designation of a county grange under New York State Grange or National Grange bylaws. Therefore, nowhere in New York State has a county grange. That said, Putnam Valley Grange is the sole active chartered grange within Putnam County. Given this circumstance and the spirit of the law's intent to ensure grange representation, Putnam Valley Grange is the grange entity representing Putnam County, serving as the appropriate and singular entity representing the grange interest in Putnam County for the purpose of this appointment. Therefore, the list of candidates submitted by the Putnam Valley Grange should be recognized as the formal submission from the county grange as contemplated by the statute. If in the future Putnam Valley Grange declines or is unable to nominate, the Duchess, Putnam, Westchester, Pomona Grange serves as the appropriate regional Grange body to make that nomination. That said, this is not the case today. We respectfully urge the Putnam County Legislature to recognize Putnam Valley Grange as the rightful representation for this statutory requirement and proceed with the appointment of a Grange representative to the Soil and Water Conservation District Board. We believe this course of action upholds both the letter and the intent of the law. Thank you for your immediate attention to this matter.
Council, if you would please weigh in.
Yes, Chairman, I'll be happy to look into this before the fall to find out what the exact definition of county grange versus a local grange and what the interplay is there, and I'll be able to provide an answer in writing before the meeting.
And if the Grange,
if
the Grange person is not a resident of Putnam County, how does that affect things?
I'll have to look at the definition to see if the Grange representative has to either be a resident or simply have a farm in the county or whatever the
But they do have to be on a list of recommended people from the
Right,
Grange.
because when we spoke earlier, because part of this has to do with, we're a chartered county, so we have some flexibility over ag and markets law, that there is no county Grange, and that's why it defaulted.
Right, and that is a literal reading of the statute as is. However, if the statute has been interpreted otherwise, either state-wise, county-wise, or even if there's case law to speak to that, then I will make sure to look into it so I have a certain answer for you next time you meet on this issue.
Okay, well, before the full, because I really would like to get the Soil and Water Conservation Board filled so we can start doing some things. So there seems to be a very valid point. Let's get it researched and let's make sure that this board is fully populated properly.
Okay. Now, there are current members of the Soil and Water Board. There's not a current Grange member on the board?
It's being disputed.
Okay.
Should make for some interesting research.
And that's where it's coming from.
Understood. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you,
Okay. One more time. Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And